everyone. We are getting ready to go live with our first ethical chat in quite a few months here. Hey! Jeanelly, let me add you in here. Is it working? Is it working? It's working!
We're here. No technical difficulties.
Yes! How are you?
I'm doing great. How are you?
I'm good.
How exciting. This is fun.
I'm super excited. I love your hair.
Thank you. This is the day 4 struggle.
I'm like, pretty much since we started quarantine and all this stuff, I have like not doing, protective styles.
Exactly.
Which is Sharman not doing her hair for a week.
This happens. I might do a treatment on Sunday. We'll see.
Get in what you can get in, right? So, we're super excited to have you. And I'm going to go ahead and let you tell everybody what you do, because you do so much more than just, the Fashion Lotus blog.
No, it's a lot. So, yes, I am a blogger / content creator under the Fashion Lotus. And I do have several platforms where I kind of share my content. So one is the blog, so thefashionlotus.com, and that's like how I started everything. And then, of course, I have my Instagram account, and I even started a food kind of account because I was posting a lot of food stuff on my Fashion Lotus one, and I'm like, you know what, this doesn't really kind of blend in, and I really want to like get more in tune with plant-based eating and like all of these other recipes, and so I created a separate account. It's called the Food Lotus. As if I didn't know
I've seen that, but then it's like, yeah.
As if I didn't have enough things going on, right? I'm also the executive editor at Lush TV. I've been doing that for like 5 years now, I think, or 6. I can't exactly remember the year that I got recruited, but I started off as a writer, like a freelance writer and kind of online camera personality, and it evolved into creative director of my own shows, red carpet appearances, interviews and things like that, and now I'm an executive editor where I still create content, but I edit the other junior copywriters' work. And you could say that I'm their sustainable manager, the sustainability manager, because I have a background in natural resource management and conservation. So trying to take the company into that direction of what is the future, and the future is very now much present. So
yes.
I've been the one who's like kind of all the time like Captain Planet.
You too?
Yeah. So yeah, and then of course, the Texas Fashion Industry Initiative, we started it 2 years ago, and we're going on year 3 coming in January. So I'm the vice president of that organization. So that's almost everything I do. I also have a day job in a corporate world where I design I used to be a trainer, but now I design the trainings for a major, I don't like saying where I work for because
that's fine.
I want to keep that,
Yeah, I understand.
But it is a very large, giant, international conglomerate corporation. Corporate America. I do love my job, but I want to protect that side of my life. But yeah, that's almost everything about me in a nutshell.
That fit in a nutshell? Does it?
You're a really big one.
It's like a coconut shell.
Pretty much. And that is very fitting because I am an island girl. So, yeah.
Hey. I was like, I like to tell people I am too, but not really, because I'm not. So my dad's mom's side is from Barbados.
Nice.
My grandmother's side. But I'm not like super in like touch with that side. I don't know anything. I just know that they're from over. So I'll be like, yeah, we island people.
Claim it, girl. It's part of your history. You've got to claim it.
So let's get more into the sustainability side. Can you tell us a little bit about really where that's coming from and how you got started?
So when it comes to sustainability, I actually didn't learn about what even that means until college. So in high school, I was, recycle, reuse, and all of that. And I took one class, which was environmental science instead of something other. And it became something really important in my life. So I went to school at the University of Puerto Rico, and I studied political science. And while I was there, I decided to kind of do a minor in environmental science. And I took a couple of wonderful classes with very prominent professors in the island that do a lot of investigative work with conservation. So I decided to get off of the political science train and get onto the environmentalist train. And I did a master's in natural resource conservation and management. So I didn't know where that was going to take me career-wise, to be honest, because I was the only one in the entire university, basically, that did not have a background in science. My background was in politics. Right. So professors did think that I could use that in policy making and things like that, but I realized that, it was going to be a really pretty uphill battle, and I kind of didn't pursue it too much. I was already working at this corporate company as a customer service representative, and eventually I grew, and I knew it wasn't going to be a permanent fixture, but they offered me an opportunity to move from Puerto Rico to San Antonio, and we took it, and it was really at the perfect timing because things started going pretty south on the island. And, I don't feel like I abandoned what I was doing in the island, but I felt like it was time for me to grow and do something where I can really be appreciated, valued, and economically more, free. So when I moved to San Antonio, I didn't have any friends, I didn't have any family. It was just my boyfriend at the time, or fiance, I guess. We had a propose yet. But
it was coming. It was coming.
It was my man and me, and we didn't know anybody here, so we bought a camera and we started taking photos around the city, and it was like a way for us to get to know the city. But some of my friends were like, you should do a blog, and I'm like, nobody cares about what I'm wearing. That's like whatever. I'm not one of those young girls that are pretty and cute and wearing all these expensive clothes, and my friends were like, do it anyway, just do it. So we decided to start my blog, and that's how I started in 2013-ish. Taking pictures of me around the Alamo, like different parts of the city, getting to know the city, and then eventually I started making friends. I started looking for community, and it was like almost non-existent in 2012, 2013. And I started looking for community to connect with, and I slowly but surely started finding people, and that's how I met Burgundy Woods at Lush TV at a Goodwill event, actually. They were doing a fashion show on reusing and upcycling and things like that with Agosto Puella. And that's how I started getting in there and meeting bloggers. I met Tori Foster Johnson, one of my favorite people in the world. I met Burgundy, I met Agosto, and it just became like, where's the next thing and how do I connect? And we created a network of people in the fashion industry, but I still always at my heart wanted to continue in something that had to do with sustainability and fashion. So my blog has evolved in that sense, and then my presence in Lush TV has made Lush TV evolve in that way as well. Yeah. I mean, we cover all news. We cover everything that has to do with all things going on. Fashion, beauty, art, music, events, and things like that all over Texas. But I am the one who's really seeking what's going on in the sustainable fashion world in Texas, because it is a thing, and it's a small thing, but it is a thing. So I'm the one who's actively seeking those pieces of information and news and things like that for us to globally, expose in a positive way what the fashion community is doing in Texas. So, did I talk too much? That's pretty much.
No, it's awesome. I love it. But I kind of want to like continue down that little train a little bit as you're talking about, the sustainability movement. I want to hear the direction you see it's going, or where you kind of think it is right now compared to like probably where you started a few years back.
Yeah, when I started, I felt like I was a lone wolf out there, like especially in Texas. That Texas is huge on the cattle industry, and it's very huge on furs, and even though it's not colder, but because of that industry is so prominent, the clothing and the processes are very much in tune with that industry. So I always thought, it's going to be impossible. I honestly, like, people look at me weird, like, oh, look at this hippie. I know people think I'm a hippie, but I feel like it's more normalized these days because people are seeking it. I recently read an article on Texas Monthly Magazine because I ran into it in the supermarket and I was like, what? This is interesting. And they're exploring what is going on in the cattle industry, and that includes fashion because, of course, the leathers and the different, pieces that are made with all the parts. And I read about a vegan couple that went vegan because they had worked in the cattle industry before, and they saw how horrible it is for the environment and for their health, that they went to another route, and now they're even working with regenerative farming. So that basically is the cow lives, is happy, and when they die, it becomes part of a natural process where it's part of the earth, but then no parts are wasted. So you can ethically use leather and animal-made things because the animal had a happy, beautiful life, and then it naturally passed away. Obviously, the industry is very difficult. It would be very difficult to say, oh yeah, I consume exclusively regenerative farming animals, because you'd be waiting for years and years and years for the poor thing to die. But it's something that's happening, and regenerative farm is the new wave, and I think that Texas is getting in on it because people are demanding more ethically made products if they're going to continue to use the animal route. So I thought that it was fantastic that Texas Monthly Magazine went into that realm and explored that avenue. I thought it was fabulous.
Yeah, that is definitely a step in. I agree. Like, we are definitely seeing sustainability become a little more mainstream, I guess we could say. But I think I'm really curious too. I totally just lost my train of thought because I was thinking, like, as you were talking about this regenerative farming, I'm like, this is something that has kind of always been that way. And it's just, recently within the past, not few decades, I mean, probably like, 50, 60, 70 years, where we've really gotten into this volume thing with the cattle factories and all that kind of thing. Because, in the regeneratives, this is something that we have always done. And specifically, like indigenous communities have always been like that, using, very specific parts. So that kind of gets me into the political side. I don't understand why, the health of our planet is politicized, but
well, it's because of this, because green talks, and
yeah,
that's a fact.
But it's like, what kind of green though?
Not our kind of green.
Not our kind of green.
You're right.
So that's one thing I've always been curious about. Not really curious, but the sense of politicizing things and then keeping politics off our platforms in different senses. But at the same time, I'm like, that's not something you do. And I'm very curious about like why you choose not to.
Well, I studied political science, as I mentioned. That was my bachelor's degree, and I hated it. I loved it in the sense of studying the history of where we are, understanding where we are by studying our history. I love that. But, and especially in Puerto Rico, so if anybody here lives or has lived or knows anything about the politics in Puerto Rico, it's very dirty, it's very corrupt, and I didn't want any part of that. moving to the U.S., I realized it's the same.
Yeah.
Money talks. People are going to lobby for their industries, and decisions are made based on these lobbyists and not for the people and not for the general best interest of the people and the planet. And so I honestly, I do have very strong political opinions, and they are educated opinions. They're not just like, I'm passionate just because. They are educated opinions, and not just because I have a background in that study field, but also because whenever I have a question or if I have, a doubt, or if I want to learn more about something, girl, I go ahead and I buy a book and I read the book.
Hey.
So, yeah. And I take notes, and I form my thoughts and opinions based on what I study and what I research. And so that, for me, when I see other people and, globally, people just having opinions, and I have this need and want to educate others, but if I really get into it, it gets very emotional, it gets very passionate, and people get violent, and people get aggressive. And so I am a peaceful person as well. So I like to keep my political thoughts mostly to myself, especially when it comes to my fashion and wellness and lifestyle platforms. So those I keep separate from whatever thoughts I would have politically. And then I would put that maybe on my Facebook, or if you and I having a dialogue face to face and we want to talk about politics, girl, let's do it. Let's talk about it in a very, cool environment, and we can have different opinions, and I will tell you why I think this way, and you can tell me why and then give me your research sources so I can study them, because maybe you're teaching me something that I don't know. But, really, I keep it low key on my fashion platforms, because that's not what that's about. But I still let my opinions be known in a very respectful way. So if you'll see on my stories that I'm fighting about social injustice, I don't think that is a political issue to me. It shouldn't be, because we're talking about humanism. We're talking about basic human rights, that it doesn't matter what your political ideologies are. I'm talking about basic human rights. So I think I've done it in a way that people don't hate me. I think they might. I don't know. Maybe it's like, oh, look at this girl. She's a hippie, whatever. But I'm like, you know what?
Well, I feel like if they're not running up in your DMs, you're good.
I've only had one situation, and it was so silly. I couldn't bear to see it. I followed certain people for certain reasons, right? And if I'm following Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez, I'm expecting certain content from her. But if I'm following XYZ blogger, and then she's giving me all of her political opinions, and on top of that, they're different from mine, and they're misinformed and miseducated, I will not waste my time going into your DMs and telling you, girl, you're wrong, this is why, here's yours. I just chose to unfollow the person, and that's fine. Like, that for me was like the most diplomatic way to deal with anxiety that was building inside me of trying to educate her. And she was talking also about my choice to go plant-based, which, by the way, I'm not 100% vegan. I've never called myself vegan, but I do call myself mostly plant-based, and I hate putting myself in boxes anyway. But she got into my DM and was all trying to be like, why'd you unfollow me? And I'm like, I'd rather do that than get into this. So I'm all about the peace.
I feel like you've been saved. That's great. I don't know. Maybe I keep hearing stories about all these, bloggers and different people that, speak out on different things, and they are constantly having people in their DMs, it seems. And I'm like, why? Like, why are you up in people's DMs trying to tell them about?
I think we can have a dialogue. I'm okay with that, but as long as it's with respect, and if you feel the need that you want to correct me or try to educate me, then be prepared for me to do my research and do the same. So, and if
warning, right?
And if you do educate me, then like, hey, thanks for sharing that with me. I really didn't know that, and if there's something that I need to track, then I would. But so far, that hasn't happened.
Yes. We got ESJ in the house. St. Dialogues. I know I saw earlier that she said to buy a book and read the book. Important stuff. Important stuff. So I'm really curious because I know you said you're not 100% like plant-based, but what was the decision behind that, and how long have you been moving in that direction?
I think about 3 years now, and so wow, I was the one to be like, you better not take away my steaks. You better not take away my cheese. Get out of my face with that tofu. Diet in my ways. And I don't know.
Oh, wait, am I losing you? Okay, you're back. You're back.
Okay, cool. You know, my husband, believe it or not, was the one who taught me about veganism, although he is not vegan, but he does a lot of YouTube. He does follow a lot of YouTubers and stuff. And so he started to say, hey, look at this. These findings are really interesting about going plant-based. And I said, absolutely, get ice with that crap. Ignorance. I think ignorance, because change is hard, you know? And so making this humongous change, diet and lifestyle, it takes work, and I really wasn't in place. But one day he showed me a documentary. It wasn't Cowspiracy, that happened afterwards, but it was a documentary on YouTube, and I was like, it's like watching the ASPCA videos and changing the channel, but you know it's happening, and you know it's there, and you know that it's real. So I kind of wanted to go in denial when he showed me the documentary about the cruelty behind the farm factory stuff, and couldn't deny it. I just couldn't deny it. An environment master's degree. They did not talk about the harms on the planet when it came to mass and farm factory cattle, for example. They didn't talk about the wastelands now in the different rainforests and like different areas that they have to just like completely destroy in order to give us our meat. That it's like a luxury, because there's many countries that don't even eat that. So I made the change, and I started slow. I had my last steak. I can't remember what year it was, but I remember where I was. I was in Montgomery, Alabama, training. I was working for my company, and I had the very last steak I've ever had. And thank goodness it was the best steak I ever had, because it would have been very disappointing to leave on that note. And then after that, I just gave it up. I gave up red meat. I gave up pork, and that's how I started. And then eventually I started eliminating things. And so right now I'm at the point where it's mostly plant-based. I'm going to say about like a 95% plant-based diet. Mm-hmm. And then very occasionally, maybe like once a month, I would have some seafood. Because I'm an island girl, it's hard to find a really good replacement, although they do make replacements, but it's hard. And so I'm just like not going to feel guilty necessarily about it, but I will find like if it can be organic, or you know, if the food can be open water, like if I'm on the island of Puerto Rico and I know where they're fishing it, I'll be okay with eating that, as opposed to aqua farming or you know, and things like that. So I'm just trying to make sure that I know where my food sources are coming from, and so I mostly really eat in a way that fuels me, that nourishes and is nutritious for me, but also makes me feel good. Like I can't eat foods that make me feel sluggish. So I don't even eat like junk food like that. I don't eat fast food at all. So I try to cook as much as possible.
Good for you.
And now during the quarantine, yeah, thank you. And now during the quarantine, it's just been a really cool way to learn my culinary skills. That, you know, I grew up in a Dominican family, and my mother is really good at cooking, and I have like all of these recipes passed down from our ancestors. and I've veganized them. And my mom is all about it. She's not offended at all that I've changed her recipes, and I've given her my new recipes, but she's using them. She doesn't eat meat either. It's not good for her system. So she's taken all of these recipes too and veganized them, and that's like almost like breaking the generational curse of disease and like all of these ailments, cancer, heart disease that Dominican and Afro-Latino people get. So that for me was super significant. And now my sister is the nutrition coach and she only works plant-based. So
nice.
I don't know how I started that wheel to turn, but I'm really happy that I did.
But I think a huge part of it is not like shoving stuff down people's throats sometimes. You just like lead by example of like, hey, here's a little something you can try. Like
for sure, I'm never gonna be that kind of person in any aspect. Like, you have to go vegan, or ooh, you're wearing leather, you're going to hell. Like whatever. Like I would never. You do you, but this is why I'm doing this. And if you want to learn more about it, I'm open to conversation and dialogue.
So talking about that dialogue and learning, what are like one tip that you would give people about sustainability or veganism or anything that you cover? Give us some tips.
So I really want to talk about like sustainability in fashion, and that's a conversation that you and I had a couple months ago. There's a couple of tips that we can offer. We can all do. It's super easy. One, shop your closet.
Yes.
I know that there's a lot of clothes in there that you either haven't used in a really long time or they're out of style or whatever. But if you go in and shop your closet, you're gonna find things that you haven't used in a really long time that you can restyle, or you can upcycle and cut it up and make it into something else and get creative. But I've gone into my closet and been like, I haven't worn this in a really long time. What should I do with it? Should I restyle it? Should I use it again? Should I find a new occasion to wear it? Or should I donate it? Or should I, like going into swap meets, maybe you can swap with your friends and maybe you can find something in their closet. So shopping your closet is like, for me, number one. It's super like economical because you're not going to spend any money. Another one is don't be afraid to thrift, or like shopping at Goodwills and things like that. Don't be afraid of doing that. I think there was a huge stigma behind thrifting, that it was for certain economical classes or whatever. But I think that everyone and anyone should be thrift shopping. You will find beauties, like incredible. And I'm not talking about vintage shops that are perfectly curated, which is beautiful and amazing, and I would totally recommend it too. But when you find something anywhere else, that for me is another one. And then also looking for ethical companies that make clothes in an ethical way, either they're fair trade or they're using materials and fabrics that are made ethically or ethically sourced, or eco-friendly, like upcycled clothing and upcycled, bandanas and jewelry and things like that. So looking for companies that are in that same line. So those are like my top three. But the first one, shop your closet, because it's the easiest and it's the cheapest.
Yes. It's always going to be that. Go. So thank you so much, Jeanelly, for talking with us today. It's been awesome to learn a little bit about more. Do you mind telling everybody else where they can find you on your different platforms?
Yes, you can find my blog, thefashionlotus.com. I'm also on YouTube, The Fashion Lotus, and here on Instagram, at The Fashion Lotus. Like everywhere, Twitter, Facebook, you can find me at The Fashion Lotus.
Awesome. Thank you. So, I did want to ask you, what is the name of the book that you're reading?
Oh, well, it could be controversial.
That's all right.
It's The Populist Guide to 2020. This is from Krystal Ball and Saagar Enjeti. They wrote a book. They're completely opposites politically. So it's based on the new right and new left are rising. So The Populist Guide to 2020. They host the show. Oh my gosh, I forgot the name, but it escaped me real quick, but they host a show on an online network, and they're like It's the Hill TV. The show is called Rising.
Okay.
I don't know if you've caught them before, but they don't forgive anybody. They're both on different sides. Like Krystal is super liberal, mostly um, what do you call that? Why is this escaping me right now when you ask me the hard questions? I mean, these are the easy questions, to be honest. But he's a Republican and she is a Democrat, and they expose their different points of view on the show, which you never see. It's so refreshing, and they're both highly educated. They're both in doing this for a really long time. Watching them just has really made they've confirmed all of the things that I had been feeling about the media, about mainstream media, and they are independent media. So being that they're both on different sides and that they discuss their different points of view in a very, very non-problematic way, but also, they talk about the hard stuff. And I may be in disagreement with one or the other, but at one point I am going to agree with something that they're saying, and it's like, nobody has ever said this before. Nobody's talking about this right now, X, Y, Z. So I love them. So their book, it just came out not too long ago, so I had to read it.
Interesting. Thanks for sharing that.
We got a little political here, but
that's all right. It happens. It's kind of our world right now, and we're gearing up towards an election, so I think,
And if anyone is wondering, I have no issue really saying what my political affiliation is. I'm a progressive, and I've always been since I studied political science, but there really wasn't a name for that back in 2000. I literally started school in 2000, 20 years ago. So there really wasn't a name for that. They just called me a leftist commie or whatever, but I'm not a communist. That's not what it is. But I am a progressive, yes.
Awesome. Thanks, Jeanelly, so much.
Thank you. Thank you for having me.
Yes, it's been great. And we will see you around because you're everywhere.
I try. Thanks, everybody. Thanks for watching.
Bye.